Good morning. Look, I know I've been quiet over the past few weeks. Actually, probably past couple of months, to be honest. All sorts of reasons for that. But I wanted to discuss what I've been thinking about doing next with the Public Relations Podcast, in case this might help you, help your business, and also make for a much more interesting show, or at least add some new elements to it. You know, one of the great things about this podcast is that because it's not a business, it's a hobby, I can evolve the show and kind of go where people want it to go. So I wanted to run this idea past you for sort of just one aspect of the evolution of the next stage of the podcast. Now, I have been hearing more and more comms and story-based marketers saying the same thing, which sadly is this. It's getting harder to persuade people of the value of comms. Clients want measurable ROI on every word we put out. And worse still now, you know, why bother using comms people when AI can just write it all for us? You and I both know in the AI era that pumping out more ads is not going to make you stand out. And using generic AI-generated stuff is also not going to make you stand out. It's just going to make you part of the noise, especially for medium-sized, you know, whether international or national businesses and small business. And I think here's the problem, even if we don't want to necessarily say this too publicly, you know, it is harder to prove ROI on comms, certainly compared to Google Ads. Now, I tried an idea last year to kind of tackle this, to kind of try and help the people that were taking part, to sort of show, look, they're brilliant at this. But the concept I tried was a little bit too complex. So what I want to do this time is this, and I want to see whether you want to get involved and whether this might help you. I want to create some special episodes of the podcast, which will be more like, and I kind of got this in my head, it's not quite right, but more like a sort of reality makeover show for businesses with comms problems, where we tap into the podcast community, i.e. you, for the expert coaches on that show. Now, as I say, I tried something like this last year, but it was a bit too complex, so I simplified it a bit. The idea is this, okay? So each episode would last about 30 minutes. We'd start with a real-world scenario that needs a comms fix. Then the middle bit would be the guest expert, perhaps you, or if needed myself, but I'd much rather it was you, doing 15 to 20 minutes of micro-consulting with a listener. And then a few weeks later, I will then follow up with that person to find out what actually happened, to prove the value of comms, to show the impact. In other words, we show, not tell, what comms can do. We make it absolutely clear that comms gets results by proving it in the podcast, even if you can't measure it on a screen instantly the moment an ad goes out. Now, I can already hear these episodes in my head, and I think they could be really compelling for a general audience as well, which at the end of the day, we're trying to reach a general business audience, right, with the message about comms. Now, I'm going to search for people, but I could also do with your help. So do you have a current client you want to impress, or one you want to reconnect with, a former client who would value a bit of advice that might get them back on board with you with a retainer, for example? You know, whatever reason that we could use in an episode. Now, obviously, not every business is going to want to go public about their comms question, and that is totally fine at first. You know, we can anonymize this and blur the details enough that no one will know it is them. But if you can help me gather some case studies on top of what I find, I think we can make a really engaging format that will not only promote what you do, but the industry as a whole. You know, you think of how the coaches or the experts on these kind of makeover shows become stars. You know, maybe we can make you that guest expert who tackles the tough questions and always gets results for people that everyone notices. You know, that's also a good brand to have. So if you would like to be a guest coach on the show, DM me on LinkedIn. You know where I am. It's Richard Midson, M-I-D-S-O-N. I'll also be reaching out to existing guests from the show too. Just search for Richard Midson, M-I-D-S-O-N. And by the way, you could be an independent expert, an agency head, someone who works somewhere else but loves to coach people. You know, maybe you're an in-house comms person, but you love doing that as well. The key thing is, and the only rule here, is that people need to be working hands-on currently in comms. But that's the only rule. So if you would like to appear, great. If you have a case study you'd like to mentor that you could bring along with you, so to speak, then even better, let me know. You know, if we can get this format working, you know, perhaps we can build some momentum here and start showing what independent comms folks like you can really do in an increasingly cynical world. Because we know this stuff works. We just need to prove it. So let me know. Oh, by the way, just for long-term listeners to the podcast, this is indeed very similar to the comms question time pilot I ran last year. That did indeed work, but it was just too complex to scale while also running this show. So this is going to be a more simplified, tighter version brought back into the main podcast feed. Again, if you want to be part of this, as a guest expert, or you have someone you'd like to mentor live on the show, not live on the show, pre-recorded on the show, but in the show, reach out to me and we can discuss how we can actually do that. So DM me on LinkedIn. I'm Richard Midson, Midson. More on this soon as I kind of evolve these ideas. And I'll also be reaching out on LinkedIn as well, asking you for your thoughts on a few other aspects too. So I hope you can help me as we kind of live build the new show here on LinkedIn. I'll speak to you soon. I hope you're having a good week, by the way. Speak to you soon. Bye.